Welcome to the Recommended Daily Value Podcast, your daily dose into the health and wellness world.
Welcome back to the Recommended Daily Value Podcast, brought to you by Umzu. I'm your host, Tyler Woodward, and today we're going to be talking about 3 reasons why it's not the gluten. So if you haven't been living on your shell for the last 10 years, you've likely heard of someone or know someone with a gluten intolerance or sensitivity. A gluten intolerance is largely defined by an inability to digest gluten, resulting in things such as bloating, discomfort, fatigue, loose stools, etc. when you consume gluten. This is in contrast to celiac disease, which is an autoimmune condition when one cannot consume any gluten at all, and doing so causes the body to mount an autoimmune response in which it attacks the small intestine, in addition to many of the systems listed for gluten sensitivity or intolerance. If you're someone that has celiac disease, this is obviously not addressed to you, as the gluten is inherently the issue, but for those that struggle with digesting gluten, this might be something to consider. Number 1, it's not the gluten, it's how much gluten. In the 1800s, commercial yeast was invented, evolutionizing the baking game across the board. No longer did you have to wait hours or even days for your bread to rise. You could throw in some commercial yeast and have it done a fraction of the time. This is how virtually every bread product today is made, but it comes at a cost. Before commercial yeast was invented, all bread was, as we call it today, sourdough bread, which is used as a culture of natural yeast for mixing wheat and water that breaks down the gluten among other compounds in wheat and causes the bread to rise. Meaning modern bread has a lot more gluten in it, making it much more difficult to digest compared to the breads and pastas our ancestors have been eating for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Number 2, it's not the gluten, it's the glyphosate. Glyphosate, which you may know as Roundup, has been the most heavily used herbicide across the U.S. since 2001. Glyphosate is very commonly used in farming to prevent the growth of weeds and pests, but its effects don't stop there. Glyphosate has been shown to alter the contents of our microbiome, which are the bacteria that reside in our colon, bind to certain minerals like iron and cobalt, which prevent us from absorbing them, and alter the function of certain proteins in the body, specifically cytochrome P oxidates, which is a necessary part of energy metabolism. Many researchers believe that the rise in gluten intolerance and celiac diseases parallels the increase in exposure and use of glyphosate in modern agriculture. Number 3, last but not least, it's not the gluten, it's your poor digestion. So the main mechanism which gluten is believed to cause gut issues is through causing a condition known as leaky gut. This occurs when food particles or bacteria pass through the intestinal lining and into the bloodstream, resulting in an inflammatory response. So while gluten can definitely cause issues, many people already have leaky gut or small intestinal or bacterial overgrowth, also known as SIBO, from eating large amounts of highly indigestible foods like seeds and leaves, consuming foods with digestive inhibitors like certain nuts and beans, or large amounts of polyunsaturated fats, all of which can contribute to leaky gut. Gluten may be exacerbating your condition and making your already poor digestion seem worse, but it's probably not the cause of your poor digestion in the first place. Now, there are definitely some people that are truly gluten intolerant and do really have issues with gluten, not including the ones with celiac disease that obviously also have issues with gluten, but I do think we are a bit too quick to blame it for all of our issues when they're likely multifactorial. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. Until next time, be good. And just a reminder that these opinions are my own, based on my own research and experiences, and are not medical advice.